Hey everyone, we'll come back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at a visual guide.
hmm
It's all about breaking free from 9 addictions that could be holding you back. And, think of it less about clinical addictions, more about those like sneaky habits and mindsets we all fall into sometimes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm really curious to hear what stands out to you as we go through this. But before we get into it, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Open Media Group. They're an amazing production community based in Egypt, Turkey, and the Middle East. And they offer like a whole range of services to help folks achieve their creative goals. We're talking video production, website development, social media management, you name it, they do it. So if you're looking for top-notch professional support, definitely check them out at https://openmediagroup.org or find the link in the episode description. All right, let's dive in. The very first addiction this guide highlights is comparison. And the image they use is pretty striking. It's this like frazzled guy shoveling money into this destructive machine. It's a powerful metaphor for how we can get caught in that comparison trap, always measuring ourselves against others and ultimately feeling inadequate.
Yeah, you know what's fascinating here is how often we compare ourselves to others without even realizing it. It's almost become like a default mode in our hyper-connected world. And this guide points out that this constant comparison can lead to some pretty negative consequences.
Totally. Like they talk about how it can lead to rushed goals, a constant sense of dissatisfaction, and even, feeling of being like a fraud. Like we're not good enough. Have you ever noticed that in your own life? I know I have, especially in the age of social media where everyone seems to be showcasing their highlight reel.
Absolutely. It's like we're constantly bombarded with images of other people's success and happiness, which can make our own lives feel pretty lackluster by comparison. And so the guide suggests a simple but powerful antidote: cultivating gratitude. Instead of focusing on what we lack, we can intentionally shift our attention to what we already have.
That makes so much sense. It's like that saying comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh,
Okay, let's move on to addiction number 2,
well,
comfort. Now, I love my comfort zone as much as the next person, but the guide argues that it's actually where dreams go to die. Yikes. What are your thoughts on that?
it's definitely a provocative statement. And while I don't think we need to be constantly living on the edge of discomfort, the guide makes a valid point. Staying stuck in our comfort zone prevents us from growing and reaching our full potential. And they introduce this concept called the 85% rule. The idea is that learning is optimized when we get things right about 85% of the time.
So that means we need to be pushing ourselves just outside of our comfort zone, where things are challenging but not completely overwhelming.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where we're stretching ourselves just enough to learn and grow, but not so much that we get discouraged and give up.
Okay, so maybe ditching the comfort zone entirely is a bit extreme, but it's a good reminder to check in and see if we're playing it too safe. All right, on to addiction number 3. Quitting. This one feels pretty universal. The guy takes a pretty blunt approach here, stating that the only way to guarantee failure is to quit. I mean, they're not wrong.
What's interesting here is that they're emphasizing simply staying in the game, even when it's tough. That alone puts you ahead of most people who give up at the first sign of difficulty.
Right. It's all about perseverance. It's so easy to get discouraged and throw in the towel when things get challenging. And the guide even suggests a little challenge to help combat quitting. Commit to something, give a friend $100, and if you quit, they get to keep the money.
Talk about accountability. I
Yeah.
love that. It introduces like a real consequence to quitting, which can help us stay motivated and focused on our goals.
Speaking of focus, let's talk about addiction number 4, distraction. The guide poses a really thought-provoking question here. Aside from sleep, is there ever a time when you're not consuming information?
Yeah.
It really makes you realize how constantly bombarded we are with stimuli,
Yeah.
especially in this digital age.
It's true. It's almost like we've forgotten how to just be, to sit in silence, to let our minds wander, to simply exist without constantly being plugged in. And the guide highlights the importance of taking intentional breaks from this constant input. They even suggest scheduling 2 15-minute blocks each day where you do absolutely nothing. No phone, no computer, no books, no external input at all.
Wow, that's a challenge. But I can see how beneficial it would be to give our brains a break from all the noise. You've tried anything like that?
You know, I've dabbled in meditation and mindfulness practices,
Yeah.
and those have been incredibly helpful in cultivating that sense of stillness and presence. Even just a few minutes a day can make a huge difference.
That's great to hear. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Addiction number 5, your phone. I think we all know we probably spend a little too much time staring at these things, but the guide really emphasizes just how pervasive and dangerous this addiction can be.
Yeah, they're not mincing words on this one. And you know what's really interesting is that they don't just say put your phone down. They offer a very specific challenge. Turn off your phone 1 hour before bed. And don't turn it on for an hour after waking up. The guide claims that if you commit to this, your life will transform before your eyes.
That's a pretty bold statement. I'm intrigued, but I'm also a little intimidated by the thought of being disconnected for that long. What about you?
I think it's a challenge worth considering. We've all felt the pull of our phones, you know? That constant urge to check notifications and scroll through our feeds. Breaking free from that, even for a few hours each day, could have a significant impact on our sleep, our focus, and our overall well being.
This makes me think about Open Media Group and how they can help people manage their digital lives more effectively. Like if you're feeling overwhelmed by social media, or if you're struggling to create content that truly resonates with your audience. These are the folks to call. They can take those tasks off your plate so you can focus on the things that matter most.
That's a great point. Delegating tasks like social media management to experts like Open Media Group can free up so much time and mental energy, allowing you to focus on the things that you're truly passionate about.
Absolutely. So if you're ready to streamline your digital life and get some expert support, head over to https://openmediagroup.org or click the link in our episode description. All right, let's move on to addiction number 6, waiting for perfect conditions to start. The visual here is pretty relatable. It's a guy just sitting there watching opportunities pass him by because he's waiting for the perfect moment. I think we've all been there.
The guide emphasizes that action beats inaction every single time. They even bring up Jeff Bezos' 70% rule. Take action when you have 70% of the information you wish you had. Don't let perfection be the enemy of progress.
I love that. It's a reminder that we don't need to have all the answers or the perfect plan to get started. Sometimes we just need to take that leap of faith and figure things out along the way.
Exactly. There's a certain magic that happens when we start taking action, even if it's imperfect action.
Look, let's move on to addiction number 7, multitasking. We all do it. But is it really as efficient as we think it is?
The guide argues that half focusing on multiple things actually leads to half-assing everything. They're big advocates for single tasking, dedicating your full focus to whatever you're doing in that moment.
I can see how that would make a big difference in the quality of our work. I mean, have you ever tried reading a book while also responding to emails and trying to have a conversation? It's a recipe for disaster.
Right. Our brains are not designed for effective multitasking, despite what we might believe. When we try to juggle too many things at once, our attention gets fragmented and the quality of our work suffers.
So the key is to identify those areas in our lives where we tend to multitask
Yeah,
and then make a conscious effort to focus on one task at a time.
exactly. And, this is another area where Open Media Group can be a game changer. They can help you streamline your workload by taking on tasks like video production or website development, freeing up your time and mental energy to focus on the things that require your undivided attention.
That's a great point. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by your to-do list and you're ready to embrace the power of single tasking, be sure to check out Open Media Group at https://openmediagroup.org. They can help you create a more focused and productive workflow. Okay, let's tackle addiction number 8, procrastination. The guide starts this section off with a quote from Pink Floyd that really hits hard. And then one day you find 10 years have got behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun. Chilling, right, Noy?
It's a powerful reminder of how insidious procrastination can be. It's like we're slowly but surely letting our lives slip away one postponed task at a time.
The guide emphasizes that we shouldn't lose our lives to procrastination. They offer a simple but potentially effective tool called the 5-minute rule. The idea is that if you're procrastinating on something, just commit to working on it for 5 minutes.
I love that. It's such a small commitment that it feels almost impossible to say no, and often that's all it takes to break through the inertia of procrastination. Once you get started, you often find that it's easier to keep going.
That's so true. It's like that initial hurdle is the hardest part. Okay, we're on to the last addiction on our list, complaining.
Uh-huh.
This one might seem harmless on the surface, but the guy argues that complaining can actually train your brain to seek out negativity.
It's an interesting perspective, isn't it? It's like we're creating a negative feedback loop. The more we complain, the more we focus on the negative aspects of our lives. And the more we train our brains to look for things to complain about.
I never thought of it that way, but it makes a lot of sense. So how do we break free from this cycle of negativity?
The guide suggests a simple but potentially powerful technique. Wear a rubber band on your wrist for a week, and every time you catch yourself complaining, snap it. It's a physical reminder to become more aware of our thoughts and words. and to consciously choose a more positive perspective.
That's a great idea. It's like a little mini intervention for our negativity. And it's a good reminder that we have the power to choose our thoughts and focus on the good things in our lives even when things are tough.
Absolutely. It's all about cultivating that sense of optimism and gratitude, even in the face of challenges.
Well, there you have it, 9 addictions that could be holding you back from living your best life. We've covered a lot of ground today, so I want to take a moment to quickly recap the key takeaways from each addiction before we move on. Are you ready for a quick review?
Absolutely. Let's do it. Okay, so let's rewind and revisit those 9 addictions, shall we? We started with comparison and how constantly measuring ourselves against others can rob us of joy and satisfaction.
And the antidote, shifting our focus to what we already have, practicing gratitude for the good things in our lives.
Next up was comfort and how clinging to our comfort zones can actually prevent us from achieving our dreams.
Remember the 85% rule. Pushing ourselves just outside our comfort zone is where the real growth happens. It's about finding that sweet spot where we're challenged but not overwhelmed.
Then we tackled quitting the ultimate dream killer. The guide emphasized that simply staying in the game, even when it's tough, puts you miles ahead of the pack.
They even suggested that clever trick of giving a friend $100 if you quit on something you committed to. A little external motivation can go a long way, right?
Absolutely. Accountability is key. Then we dove into the ever-present distraction and how the constant bombardment of information can make it hard to just be present in the moment.
The guide's suggestion was pretty radical. Scheduling 2 15-minute blocks each day to do absolutely nothing. No phone, no computer, no input at all.
It's a tall order in our hyper-connected world, but imagine the mental clarity and focus you could gain from even a few minutes of true stillness each day.
And speaking of constant connection, we couldn't ignore the elephant in the room, your phone. The guide didn't sugarcoat it, emphasizing just how addictive and potentially harmful our devices can be.
Their challenge was simple yet potentially life-changing. Turning off your phone 1 hour before bed and leaving it off for an hour after waking up. Could you imagine the impact that could have on your sleep, your focus, and your overall sense of well-being?
It's definitely food for thought. Then we explored the tendency to wait for perfect conditions to start. The guide was adamant that action beats inaction every single time, and they even introduced Jeff Bezos' 70% rule.
Remember that one. Take action when you have 70% of the information you wish you had. Don't let the pursuit of perfection paralyze you into inaction.
So true. Sometimes we just need to jump in and figure things out along the way. Speaking of figuring things out, we then delved into multitasking and whether it's truly as efficient as we often believe it to be.
The guide argued that half-focusing on multiple things actually leads to half-assing everything. They're strong proponents of single-tasking, dedicating your full focus to one thing at a time.
It makes sense when you think about it. Our brains simply aren't wired to effectively juggle multiple tasks at once.
And you know, this is where our sponsor Open Media Group comes in. If you're feeling overwhelmed by your workload and struggling to focus on the tasks that truly require your undivided attention, Open Media Group can help.
They can take those time-consuming tasks, like video production, website development, and social media management off your plate, freeing up your time and mental energy to focus on the things that matter most.
It's all about working smarter, not harder. And speaking of working smarter, we then tackled procrastination, that sneaky habit that can steal our time and dreams without us even realizing it.
The guide urged us not to lose our lives to procrastination and offered a simple tool to combat it, the 5-minute rule. If you're putting something off, commit to working on it for just 5 minutes.
It's a brilliant strategy. And finally, we wrap things up with complaining, a seemingly harmless habit that can actually train our brains to seek out negativity.
The guide suggested wearing a rubber band on your wrist and snapping it every time you catch yourself complaining. It's a physical reminder to become more mindful of our thoughts and words.
It's a simple yet effective technique for breaking free from that cycle of negativity and cultivating a more positive outlook.
So there you have it, a quick recap of the 9 addictions that might be holding you back. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about what resonated with you the most. Is there one of these addictions that feels particularly relevant to your life right now? And if so, what are some practical steps you could take to break free from it?
That's a great question. Take a moment to reflect on these addictions and consider which one feels most potent for you.
For example, if comparison is your Achilles heel, you might commit to a daily gratitude practice, writing down 3 things you're grateful for each evening. Or maybe you find yourself constantly distracted. In that case, perhaps you could experiment with those 15-minute blocks of intentional nothingness.
Or maybe you're stuck in a rut clinging to your comfort zone. Remember the 85% rule? What's one small step you could take today to push yourself just outside that comfort zone?
It doesn't have to be anything drastic. Maybe it's signing up for that online course you've been eyeing or having a difficult conversation you've been putting off. The key is to take action.
And remember, you don't have to go it alone. There are so many resources and support systems available to help you on this journey. Surround yourself with positive people who encourage your growth and celebrate your successes.
And speaking of support systems, don't forget about our sponsor, Open Media Group. They're a fantastic resource for anyone looking to take their creative projects to the next level.
Whether you need help with video production, website development, or social media management, they've got a team of experts ready to assist you. Visit them at https://openmediagroup.org or click the link in the episode description to learn more.
So what are you waiting for? Take that first step towards breaking free from those addictions that are holding you back. Remember, even small changes can have a big impact over time.
Now let's take this a step further. If these are the addictions we need to break, what are the healthy antidotes we can cultivate in their place?
It's a great question. It's like we're creating a recipe for a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Right.
Instead of comparing ourselves to others, we can practice gratitude.
Hmm.
Instead of staying stuck in our comfort zones, we can embrace challenges and push ourselves to grow.
Yeah.
Instead of giving up at the first sign of difficulty, we can persevere and stay the course. Instead of letting distractions rule our lives, we can cultivate stillness and focus on what truly matters. Instead of being glued to our phones, we can be present in the moment and connect with the world around us. Instead of waiting for the perfect conditions, we can take action and learn as we go. Instead of multitasking and spreading ourselves thin, we can focus our energy on one task at a time and produce higher quality work. Instead of procrastinating and letting our dreams slip away, we can take action and make progress towards our goals. And instead of complaining and focusing on the negative, we can choose to look for the good in every situation and cultivate a more optimistic outlook.
It's like we're rewiring our brains for positivity and growth.
And you know what this whole conversation has reminded me of Open Media Group and their approach to creativity. They don't just churn out content. They take the time to understand their clients' visions and help them bring those visions to life.
It's all about collaboration, innovation, and a commitment to excellence.
And speaking of excellence, Open Media Group has a proven track record of success. They've worked with clients from all over the world, producing everything from high-end commercials to engaging social media campaigns.
So whether you're a small business looking to make a splash or a large corporation seeking a fresh perspective, Open Media Group is worth checking out.
Visit them at https://openmediagroup.org or just click the link in our episode description.
They're a valuable resource for anyone looking to elevate their brand and create captivating content.
Now let's shift gears again and talk about something that often gets overlooked in the self-improvement world: the importance of self-compassion.
Oh, that's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of self-improvement and forget that we're all human and we're all going to make mistakes along the way.
It's like we beat ourselves up for not being perfect, which can actually make it even harder to break free from those negative habits and mindsets.
Exactly. It's crucial to approach this journey with kindness and understanding. We need to be gentle with ourselves, especially when we stumble or fall short of our expectations.
And remember, progress is not linear. There will be setbacks and challenges along the way. The key is to learn from those experiences, pick ourselves up, and keep moving forward.
It's all about embracing the journey, imperfections and all.
And speaking of embracing the journey, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive into the 9 addictions that might be holding you back.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground today, and I hope you found this exploration insightful and empowering.
I did.
Remember, you have the power to break free from these habits and create a life that truly aligns with your values and aspirations.
You do.
So go out there, be kind to yourself, and embrace the journey of becoming the best version of you.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, keep diving deep.